Hey guys, tonight we journey far back in time, to a place of misty mountains, bamboo groves, and a strict social hierarchy that doesn't care how many followers you have. You're waking up in feudal Japan, no air conditioning, no deodorant, and definitely no TikTok. A chorus of cicadas buzzes in the early morning light as a rooster, who has zero chill, screeches you into consciousness. You're lying in the middle of a rice field, your head resting on a bundle of straw, and your back already aching from the rock that's been lodged under your spine all night. You stretch, only to realize you're wearing a stiff, itchy hemp kimono 2 sizes too small, and something that feels suspiciously like twine is holding it shut. The hat on your head? A woven casa, not for fashion but to keep the sun from cooking your skull by noon. It does absolutely nothing for your dignity. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, let me know where you're listening from and what time it is where you are. I love seeing how far this sleepy little community reaches. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You blink around, disoriented. The landscape is breathtaking, lush green paddies stretching to the horizon, wooden farmhouses dotting the land like quiet sentinels. But before you can take a selfie or complain about the lack of signal, a farmer trudges past and gives you a suspicious side eye. You bow instinctively, too deep. Way too deep. Your forehead almost hits your knees. The man raises an eyebrow, grunts, and keeps walking. Not off to a great start. You're in the Edo period, sometime between the 1600s and 1800s. The Tokugawa shogunate rules the land with an iron fan, and unless you're born a samurai, monk, or merchant elite, you're not exactly thriving. Spoiler alert, you're a peasant today. Because of course you are. You wanted to experience the culture. Well, congratulations, you're about to get the full immersive package. Back pain, blisters, and a complete lack of dental rights. Historians still argue whether the rigid social structure of the time was truly immovable or if clever peasants occasionally found ways to climb it. But for you? Not today. Today, you're just trying not to get yelled at before breakfast. A child runs past you carrying a bucket almost as big as she is. You nod politely. She frowns at your modern accent and disappears behind a stack of firewood. You glance down at your feet, bare, muddy, and already being bitten by some sort of prehistoric mosquito that sees you as a buffet. The farmer returns. He hands you a tool, a kuwa or hoe, and gestures to a patch of soil that looks exactly like the rest of the soil. He speaks rapidly. You nod like you understand. You don't. But you start hoeing anyway. Badly. Within minutes, you've hit a rock, tripped over your own feet, and flung a clod of earth dangerously close to an elderly woman nearby. She glares at you with the force of 10 generations. Another farmer, stoic and sun-darkened, walks by with a bundle of reeds and mutters something that probably translates to city folk. You're already sweating through your clothes, your lower back is hinting at mutiny, and you've barely survived the first hour. A nearby bell clangs, echoing over the hills. That's the village timekeeper. Yes, they had those, and it's signaling the end of the first work segment. No, not lunch. Just a break long enough to not collapse. As you shuffle toward a shaded area, you notice a peculiar sight. A man squatting by a tree, fanning himself with what looks like dried eel skin. He's chanting softly while arranging stones in a circle. This is the local Yamabushi, a mountain ascetic known for practicing shugand, a blend of Shinto, Buddhism, and mysticism. He eyes you as though sensing your soul is unclean. You try to avoid eye contact, but he sprinkles some salt in your direction. Cool. You've been spiritually disinfected. Quirky, right? Here's the thing. In feudal Japan, especially in rural areas, spiritual life was weirdly blended. People believed everything had a spirit: trees, Tools, even that rice ball you dropped earlier. Better pick it up and apologize. Seriously. The local kami, spirits, might take offense, and nobody wants an angry rice spirit cursing their crops. Meanwhile, there's an older man in the corner drawing thin lines in the dirt with a stick. You assume he's meditating until he looks up and whispers, "Storm's coming." The sky is blue and cloudless. He might be joking. Or he might be one of those village weather prophets whose track record is better than your weather app. You've got no idea what time it is because feudal Japan doesn't do clocks. Instead, the day's carved into 6 units of time, named after zodiac animals and marked by bells, shadows, or someone yelling really loudly from a hill. If you're not used to that, well, you're not. Back in the field, someone offers you a drink. It's served in a gourd and tastes like barley tea mixed with regret. Still, you gulp it down, because hydration. The sun's rising higher, your shoulders are pinking up despite your hat, and your stomach is growling like a half-starved tanuki. But breakfast isn't for a while yet. Just when you think you found a rhythm, ho, sigh, wipe sweat, repeat, you notice a group of children imitating your awkward movements from behind a bush. They collapse into giggles when you pretend to swing the hoe like a sword. You're a walking comedy show. Great. And yet, amid the dirt and embarrassment, there's something almost meditative about it. The rhythm. The simplicity. The lack of buzzing phones or honking cars. You feel a bit calmer. Dirty, itchy, sunburned, but calm. You sit on a log for a moment, watching a dragonfly land on your knee. It hovers for a second before darting off toward the paddies. There's peace here, even if it's the kind that comes with a side of heatstroke and insect bites. But don't get too comfy. You've still got 14 hours to go, and feudal Japan hasn't even started getting weird yet. You hear a wooden clapper in the distance, Hyoshigi, it's called. 2 sticks slapped rhythmically to signal something important. In this case, it means breakfast. You perk up, legs cramping as you rise from the log, hoe slung awkwardly over your shoulder like a wannabe samurai. Spoiler, you're not. And that's about to become very obvious. The farmhouse you're herded toward is modest, wooden slats, a thatched roof, and paper sliding doors barely holding back the morning chill. You hesitate at the threshold, then step inside with your mud-crusted sandals. A collective gasp. You've just committed a crime of etiquette so grave, the lady of the house freezes mid-step, a tray of miso soup wobbling in her hands. The entire room stares at you. Congratulations, you've defiled sacred tatami. Someone coughs awkwardly. A boy scrambles to offer you a cloth to clean your feet. You apologize profusely in English, which of course no one understands, but your panicked bowing seems to be penance enough. Eventually, the atmosphere thaws just enough to let you sit in the corner like a shamed dog. Breakfast is served, and it's humble. A wooden tray is placed in front of you. Brown rice, sticky but cold. A chunk of pickled radish so sour it might dissolve your enamel. And a small cup of tea with floating leaves that you politely pretend not to chew. You glance around and see everyone else eating with silent efficiency, using chopsticks like surgical tools. You're chasing rice grains like they owe you money. Historians still argue whether peasant diets were as monotonous as records suggest, or if regional variations gave more color to the daily fare. Either way, today you're getting the standard, mostly rice, fermented soybeans, and whatever the earth coughed up this season. No eggs. No meat. Definitely no pancakes. The richest dish at this table is miso soup with a single slice of daikon floating like a shipwreck. Quirky fact incoming. Some households believe that if you spilled a grain of rice, the gods would count it against you in the afterlife. So when your trembling hand knocks your bowl just slightly and a few grains hit the floor, you freeze. You lock eyes with a grandmother in the corner. She doesn't speak, but she knows. You pick them up. You eat them. You try to act like that was intentional. Conversation is light. Actually, non-existent. People in feudal Japan didn't chit-chat much during meals, especially in peasant households. Not because they were rude, more like because they were exhausted. Farming life meant up with the sun, down with the sun, and very little energy for casual banter about your dreams or how you miss air fryers. You watch the eldest son finish his food and bow to the matriarch, who nods approvingly. Respect is baked into everything here: age, status, even how deeply you bow before standing. You, in contrast, fumble your goodbye, trip on your own foot, and land with your nose against a support beam. They kindly pretend not to laugh. Outside again, the light has warmed to a golden hue, the rice paddies now shimmering like they're made of molten jade. You walk slowly, clutching your stomach, which is both full and confused. One thing becomes clear: that breakfast may have been small, but it was earned. Your muscles already ache, your knees feel like they're auditioning for a tragic kabuki play, and the sun isn't even at its peak yet. You'll beckon toward a stream where several women are rinsing vegetables and laundry. One woman gestures for you to help scrub turnips. You do so, clumsily, nearly launching one into the water. She smiles tolerantly. You suspect she's laughing at you internally. Honestly, fair. While you work, you notice a little shrine near the edge of the bank, a tiny wooden box with a red cloth draped over it, containing coins, pebbles, and what looks like dried fish. This is an offering to a local kami, likely Inari, the rice god. You nod in reverence, though a part of you still wants to Google if you're doing it right. You start chatting quietly with a younger boy near the edge of the water. Or rather, you try. You know about 5 Japanese words, 3 of which involve food. The boy points to himself and says, "Ichiro." You say your name. He frowns, tries to repeat it, fails, and settles on calling you Nico because of the cat-like way you flailed trying to grab a rolling turnip. It sticks. Congratulations. You're now Nico-san. Back in the main village square, a gong sounds. A merchant's arriving, pulling a cart full of goods wrapped in cloth and straw. It's the highlight of the week. Everyone gathers, murmuring with excitement. The merchant lays out his wares: candied chestnuts, herbal remedies, dyed fabrics, and one mysterious item wrapped in lacquered wood. You approach to take a closer look and get lightly smacked with a fan by an old man who mutters something about knowing your place. Apparently, peasants don't browse like they're at a mall. You step back quickly. Historians still argue whether merchant wealth truly translated to social clout. Officially, merchants were near the bottom of the hierarchy, but unofficially, they often had more money and power than the samurai they served. You have no money, no power, and now a bump on your head from a folding fan. You take a moment to rest under a pine tree near the village edge. A cat slinks by, indifferent to your suffering. You consider petting it, but remember you probably smell like miso and wet straw. You sigh and lie back, staring at the clouds. The breeze carries a faint hint of charcoal smoke and wet earth. For just a second, it's peaceful again. Then the farmer from earlier taps you with a stick and points to a pile of firewood. Guess what? Naps are for nobles. The pile of firewood stares back at you like it knows something you don't. It's huge, towering, an unspoken challenge to your soft hands and mild upper body strength. The farmer points again, less gently this time, and gestures to a yoke lying nearby. You gulp. Oh no! You're about to become a one-person delivery system. You sling the yoke over your shoulders like you've seen in documentaries. The wood bites into your neck immediately. Then come the bundles, tied reeds, chopped logs, bits of kindling, and each one seems to weigh more than the last. Balancing them is like stacking a game of Jenga on your collarbones. You wobble forward, knees shaking like bamboo in a storm. Your destination? A communal bathhouse a few hundred feet away, Sento for the peasants, not to be confused with the fancy onsen springs the samurai class enjoys. You shuffle toward it, one slow, awkward step at a time, muttering encouragement to yourself. This is fine. You've carried groceries before. What's the worst that could? And that's when you trip on a root and do a dramatic forward lurch that sends your bundle sprawling. You expect yelling. You brace for shame. But instead, a teenage girl walks by, effortlessly picks up one of the logs you dropped, and pats you on the shoulder like a child who tried their best. You whisper thanks. She laughs and says something that definitely sounds like city cat. The bathhouse itself is a squat, smoky building near a cluster of rocks. Inside, the air is thick with steam and the scent of pine ash. A small fire crackles beneath a water cauldron. No plumbing here, just ingenuity and sweat. You're not bathing, yet, just helping prepare the fuel. The bath attendants, older women with rolled-up sleeves and absolutely zero patience, direct you toward a spot where more logs are needed. You stack. You sweat. You accidentally inhale a puff of ash and spend the next 3 minutes coughing like a dramatic stage actor. One of the women hands you a cloth soaked in something herbal. You press it to your face and instantly feel better. What is this magic? Mugwort, probably. Or witchcraft. Historians still argue whether these traditional healing techniques were more effective than they seemed, or just highly ritualized placebos. Either way, you're on board. Someone opens the back door and a rush of cooler air flows in, bringing with it the distant sound of flutes and drums. The festival must be starting. Wait, festival? Oh yes, you forgot. Today's not just any backbreaking, mosquito-ridden day. It's a local matsuri, and for one golden afternoon, everyone gets a chance to pretend they're not absolutely exhausted by life. You're dragged, yes, literally, by a couple of kids toward the main square, where paper lanterns are being strung between wooden poles. Colorful banners ripple in the wind, and someone's already cranking up the beat on a taiko drum that sends a thump through your chest every few seconds. The energy lifts, just a little. Even the elders are smiling. One man is setting up a puppet stage, tiny hand-carved figures dancing across a backdrop painted with mountains and cherry trees. You kneel to watch as the puppeteer launches into a story of betrayal, loyalty, and one guy turning into a fox. Honestly, it slaps. A reminder that entertainment in feudal Japan wasn't all stoic no theater, it could be weird and delightful, too. A little girl hands you a skewer. It's grilled dango, sweet rice dumplings, and you bite in gratefully. It's chewy, smoky, and the best thing you've eaten all day. For a moment, things feel lighter. The colors brighter. You even laughing a little. But then, like clockwork, you're volunteered for a performance. Not a joke. Apparently, foreigners are considered exotic and mildly hilarious. Someone hands you a simple costume, just a sash and a wooden mask, and before you can protest, you're pushed on stage with a group of villagers doing a clumsy dance that involves hopping, bowing, and waving fans like you're fanning away bees. You try your best, but your rhythm is tragic, and your fan ends up flying into the crowd. People cheer anyway. You bow deeply, this time without smashing your face, and feel a flush of pride. Historians still argue whether village festivals were spontaneous or rigidly structured religious affairs. From your current, very sweaty vantage point, it feels like a little of both. One moment you're dancing for a deity, the next you're eating too much grilled squid and wondering if your stomach can handle it. As twilight deepens, a procession begins. Everyone lines up to follow a small mikoshi, a portable shrine carried on shoulders and believed to house a kami for the duration of the festival. You're handed a corner of the support beam. You look at the people around you, stern-faced grandfathers, gap-toothed children, tired mothers with fire in their eyes. You lift. It's heavy, unreasonably heavy. You feel your spine compress and your soul exit your body just a little, but you trudge forward anyway, because everyone else is doing it and you're trying to avoid cultural disgrace. Eventually, the shrine is set down with reverence. People bow. Some clap twice to get the deity's attention. You copy them, then quietly whisper, "Please send air conditioning." The shrine does not respond. Night has fallen now, and the lanterns glow like fireflies trapped in paper cages. Music plays softly. People are dancing in slow circles. You sit by a low wall, eating another rice dumpling, your face smeared with ash and your feet screaming obscenities. But you're smiling. Against all odds. A boy sits next to you, Ichiro from earlier. He offers you a carved top and demonstrates how to spin it with a flick of string. You try. It wobbles once and faceplants. He gives you a pitying look. But he lets you keep it. Your breath slows. The night is quiet now. Just drums in the distance, crickets in the grass, and the warmth of a village that, for one day, has wrapped you into its rhythm. You're still aching. Still confused. Still very much out of your element. But you haven't been kicked out yet. That's something. The next morning is not kind. You awaken to what you think is thunder, but it's just the head farmer pounding on a wooden plank outside your door like he's summoning demons. Your muscles have rebelled overnight. Everything hurts, from your feet to your eyebrows. You groan, roll over on the tatami mat, and immediately regret it. Even your dreams seem bruised. You shuffle outside and the cold air slaps your face like a disapproving grandmother. Welcome to your second day in feudal Japan. No ibuprofen. No memory foam. No mercy. The farmer hands you a rake and leads you toward a field that looks familiar. That's because it's the same field you nearly passed out in yesterday. Except now it's wetter and smells like decomposing weeds. Today, you're working irrigation channels, digging, clearing, and maintaining the small ditches that bring precious water from the nearby stream into the paddies. It's muddy. It's tedious. It's vital. You dig, slog, and stumble through the work, occasionally pausing to flick a leech off your leg or fish your sandal out of the muck. The others work without complaint. One man even sings softly to himself, a folk song about a lovesick eel, you think. It's catchy. You hum along. A younger boy is assigned to work next to you, no older than 12. He's fast. Efficient. His feet glide across the narrow paths with the balance of a tightrope walker. He gives you a shy smile, then effortlessly shovels a trench in half the time it takes you to sneeze. You are once again humbled by a child. And yet, the rhythm of it starts to settle in. Scoop, dump, drag. The sun warms your back, the mud squishes between your toes, and for just a moment, your body takes over. Your brain zones out. It's almost meditative. Until someone shouts, and you realize you've accidentally redirected the stream into someone's vegetable patch. Oops. Historians still argue whether communal labor like this fostered genuine harmony or was just enforced obedience. Based on the way an old man is glaring at you over his ruined cabbages, you're leaning toward the latter. After lunch, yes, another bowl of lukewarm rice and pickled root, you're redirected to an entirely new job, scarecrow maintenance. Sounds simple. And sure, it starts that way. You're handed straw, a kimono sleeve, and a broken wooden pole. You fashion a rough humanoid figure with a face drawn in charcoal and place it at the edge of the field. Done. But then someone comes over and shakes their head. Too happy, they say, pointing to the scarecrow's goofy grin. Crows won't take it seriously. So you erase the smile and try again. This time, too sad. Then too angry. Then not scary enough. Eventually, you just jab the stick in the ground and hope that your incompetence looks deliberate. Fun side note, some scarecrows in feudal Japan weren't just straw men, they were effigies of gods or spirits, believed to protect crops from more than just birds. The word kakashi literally comes from stinky or smelly, since older versions were coated in rotten meat or fish to ward off animals. So you're grateful no one hands you a bucket of fermented sardines. Mid-afternoon, the headwoman of the village appears. Everyone bows. You scramble to do the same, nearly tipping into the rice paddy. She's short, severe, and walks with a wooden staff carved with symbols. She pauses in front of you. Her eyes sweep you up and down. You bow again, lower this time. She grunts. Then she does something unexpected. She hands you a folded piece of cloth. You open it to reveal a plain, indigo-dyed robe. Rough linen, but clean. It's not a gift exactly. It's a message. If you're going to stay, you're going to stop looking like someone who got lost on the way to a Comic-Con panel. You put it on. It itches. But it fits. The robe marks a kind of turning point. People start to talk to you more, not full conversations, but nods, grunts, small comments. You're still an outsider, still a walking curiosity, but now you're less of a spectacle and more of a tolerated anomaly. Like a weird stray dog that keeps showing up and eventually gets a name. You help gather firewood in the forest with a group of young boys who compete to see who can carry the most. You lose spectacularly, but they are impressed you didn't drop anything. A girl ties your bundle with surprising gentleness and teaches you how to balance it using a forehead strap called a tsunagi. You try it. It's not great for your neck. But it works. As dusk falls, a storm brews on the horizon. You see lightning crack in the distance, and villagers begin moving quickly, securing shutters, covering vegetable baskets, and tying down anything that might blow away. You're handed a task: help reinforce the thatched roof of the grain store. You climb a ladder, clutching damp rope and a bundle of reeds, heart hammering. Heights? In feudal Japan? Not ideal. The wind picks up, whistling through the trees. You fumble, your foot slipping slightly, but a hand grabs your arm. It's the farmer's son. He says something that probably translates to, "Don't die on my watch." You nod solemnly. Rain starts just as you finish tying the last bundle. You slide down and splash into a puddle, soaked to the bone. Someone hands you a piece of warm roasted yam. You bite into it, steam curling around your cheeks, and sigh with real satisfaction. By nightfall, the storm rages in earnest. You huddle inside the farmhouse with others, listening to the wind buffet the walls. Someone lights a candle. Another begins to tell a ghost story about a woman with no face who appears during storms and asks travelers for directions. If you answer, she takes your voice. Charming. You sit close to the fire, surrounded by people who are still strangers, but less so than they were yesterday. The room smells of smoke and rain-soaked earth. The shadows dance along the wooden beams above. You sip a bowl of hot barley tea and let your eyes drift half-closed. It's not home. Not even close. But for tonight, it's shelter. It's warmth. And for once, you're not entirely useless. You wake to a different sound this time. Not birds or firewood crackling, but something more ceremonial. A steady drumbeat, low and slow, like a heartbeat in the earth. You sit up. The daughter is already dressed in her best kimono. The father is putting on something that looks almost like armor, but it's more decorative than functional. The mother gives you a bundle of clean clothes and a look that says, "Try not to embarrass us today." Today is festival day. Yes, even in feudal Japan, amidst rice taxes and the threat of banditry, people needed something to celebrate. And celebrate they did, with color, food, and a surprising number of fire hazards. The festival is held at the Jinja, a local Shinto shrine just beyond the forest, nestled near a stream. The air already hums with incense, laughter, and the rustle of silk. You change into the clothes provided, a cotton kimono and a sash tied so tightly you start seeing memories from your childhood. Your hair is a mess, but so is everyone else's, so you call it a draw. When you step outside, the village looks completely transformed. Banners flap in the breeze, stalls are bursting with sweets, and someone is already half drunk on sake, singing a song about a moon that ran away from its lover. You follow the family toward the shrine. Along the path, children dash around with paper fans and toy arrows. There's a man dressed as a fox spirit, doing cartwheels and collecting coins in a wooden bowl. You drop in a pebble. He nods solemnly, then flips again. The shrine itself is nestled under tall cedars, its roof curved like a bird's wing. You bow at the torii gate, mimicking those around you. There's a ritual here: wash hands at the basin, clap twice, bow, then make a wish. You follow along awkwardly. Your wish? Probably don't let me accidentally offend a deity today. Shintoism, the indigenous spirituality of Japan, isn't a strict doctrine. It's more like a relationship with nature and ancestors, deeply woven into daily life. Historians still debate whether these local festivals were more religious or communal, but the result is the same: joy, tradition, and a chance to wear bright clothes without being judged. You're swept into the crowd. The smell of grilled squid on skewers mingles with sweet rice cakes and pickled plums. Someone hands you a cup of amazake, a warm, mildly sweet rice drink. It tastes like fermented oatmeal, but in a comforting way. You wander past a row of game stalls where children try to scoop goldfish from shallow bowls using paper nets that dissolve instantly. It's equal parts adorable and impossible. You try. You fail instantly. The child next to you catches 3 in 30 seconds. You nod respectfully, acknowledging your defeat. Then comes the procession. A group of men and women hoist a mikoshi, a portable shrine, onto their shoulders. It's lacquered, golden, and jingling with bells. They shout in unison, bouncing it as they walk. The crowd parts like rice in boiling water. This is more than ceremony. It's believed the kami, the spirit, is traveling through the village in this shrine. Everyone bows as it passes. You do too, a little deeper this time. One woman winks at you from under the shrine's canopy. You're not sure if that's divine flirtation or just sweat in her eye. You'll take it. Music erupts from a nearby platform, drums, flutes, and a kind of singing that feels more like stylized shouting. A kagura performance begins, a sacred dance to entertain the gods. The dancer wears a white robe, red skirt, and a mask that looks halfway between joyful and haunted. She moves with deliberate grace, turning slowly, her sleeves fluttering like wings. You stand mesmerized. Everyone does. It's like time has paused to let the gods enjoy the show. Then, suddenly, you're grabbed by the arm. It's the fox-spirited performer again. He's recruiting people, you included, for a communal dance. It's simple, he says. Just follow along. Easy for him to say, he's wearing a mask. You, on the other hand, are now in the center of a wide circle, moving in what can only be described as enthusiastic flailing. The beat picks up. You twirl, you clap, you try not to step on anyone. You accidentally invent a new move that involves slipping slightly and turning it into a bow. Somehow, the crowd cheers. You're now that foreign dancer. Later, exhausted and slightly damp, you find a quiet spot under a tree to sit. A small boy offers you a rice dumpling wrapped in bamboo. You accept with gratitude. It's chewy, a bit sweet, and tastes like someone made it with genuine love. A wandering monk approaches, ringing a tiny bell. He's collecting donations. You don't have any coins, but you offer your last pickled plum. He smiles, accepts, and murmurs a blessing you don't understand but instantly feel. He moves on. You sit back and sigh. The sun begins to dip. Lanterns are lit, casting warm golden orbs that sway in the breeze. Fireflies appear as if on cue. A child hands you a candle in a paper boat. Everyone walks slowly to the stream and releases them together. Dozens of lights drift downstream, carrying prayers and wishes into the dark. You watch yours bob gently in the current, its flicker small but steady. There's something ancient in this moment, something that reminds you the people here, with their hard lives and wooden sandals, still make time for beauty. For community. For joy. Back at the farmhouse, the family is buzzing. The father hums a festival tune. The mother has a string of prayer beads wrapped around her wrist. The daughter is passed out, still holding a toy she won by aggressively throwing beanbags at ceramic targets. You crawl into your mat, still smelling of smoke and incense. Outside, drums beat faintly in the distance. You don't understand everything. But today, you belonged. Morning comes with a crispness in the air that makes your teeth ache. The storm has passed, leaving the sky washed clean and the ground an enormous sponge. You squelch your way outside, trying not to fall on your face again. A rooster announces itself like it just invented mornings, and you contemplate what it would be like to live in a world without alarms, phones, or espresso. Spoiler, it's terrible. Today is market day. You've heard murmurs about it for the past 24 hours, traders coming in from neighboring villages, a rare exchange of goods, news, and gossip. Think of it as feudal Japan's version of going to Target on a Sunday. If the store was outdoors, the aisles were made of dirt, and you might get trampled by a mule. You're not a shopper, though. You're helping with setup. That means hauling baskets, arranging stalls, and trying to hang bundles of dried herbs so they look tempting instead of like witchcraft. You carry crates of dried fish that smell like sadness. You help a potter stack his wares, praying you don't drop anything, and owe him 5 years of indentured servitude. The market is already buzzing with early arrivals. There's a woman with a falcon on her arm, a monk playing a flute while balancing on one foot, and a man selling grilled eel on sticks that look wildly unsafe but smell incredible. You're both overwhelmed and starving. A merchant eyes you with curiosity. "You lost?" he asks, in the kind of tone that suggests you're wearing your robe backwards. "You bow." He laughs, then offers you a pickle from a mystery jar. It's crunchy. It's spicy. It's probably radish. You hope. By mid-morning, the village square is transformed. There are stalls selling miso paste, silk thread, crude iron tools, and ink prints of famous kabuki actors. You spot a painting of a kabuki villain so dramatically angry he looks like he's constipated. A small child is terrified of it. You nod solemnly. Same. Historians still argue whether markets in feudal Japan were true centers of economic freedom or just tightly controlled extensions of daimyo power. Either way, they were essential for life. Without markets, there's no salt for food, no dye for cloth, no gossip to keep everyone semi-entertained. You're assigned to help an elderly tea seller. He has no teeth and apparently no need for them. He talks a mile a minute while you try to set up his table. His tea, made from roasted barley, is surprisingly good. He gives you a tiny cup. You sip and pretend you understand everything he's saying. You nod when he nods. You frown when he looks dramatic. It's a performance. You win an imaginary Oscar. Then something shifts in the air. A samurai arrives. You can tell because the energy of the market changes instantly, like someone just unplugged the vibe. He's not decked out in full armor, but the twin swords, katana and wakizashi, are unmistakable. His robe is clean, creased perfectly, dyed with deep indigo and a crest you don't recognize. People bow. Some very deeply. You do too, maybe a bit too quickly, and nearly headbutt a vegetable basket. The samurai doesn't seem to notice you. He's inspecting the quality of rice on a merchant stall, his tone even but carrying the weight of someone who could cut you in half and be home in time for tea. Historians still argue whether low-ranking samurai behaved more like military police or bureaucratic overlords. In this case, he seems somewhere in between, checking for fairness, but mostly enjoying the power trip. You can feel the tension like humidity. Everyone watches him, even when pretending not to. Then, just like that, he walks on. The mood returns. Slowly. Like everyone collectively exhaled. You resume helping with tea sales, hands a little shakier than before. You ask the old man if samurai visit often. He shrugs. Sometimes. Sometimes worse. You don't ask what worse means. As the afternoon heat sets in, a wrestling match begins near the center of the square. It's not sumo exactly, more like roughhouse grappling with bets and cheers. You're pushed forward to watch. One contestant looks like he eats tree trunks for breakfast. The other is a wiry guy with a missing eyebrow. The crowd loves him. You realize there's more shouting in this one event than you've heard all week. And then someone asks if you want to try. You laugh. They're not joking. Someone tosses you a sash. You refuse politely, but a group of teens is already chanting what you assume is your name, or at least foreigner wrestle. And then, with no way out and a dozen very amused villagers watching, you step into the makeshift ring. Your opponent? A 14-year-old girl with the confidence of a trained assassin. She bows. You bow. Then she promptly flips you onto your back with the grace of a spinning top. The crowd explodes. You lie in the dirt, defeated and strangely proud. She helps you up. You both bow again. They give you a rice cracker as consolation. Late in the day, a storyteller arrives with a portable screen. He sets it up with theatrical flair and begins a kamishibai performance, a kind of illustrated tale told through pictures. This one is about a brave peasant who outwits a greedy landlord using only rice balls and a talking frog. It's oddly moving. You find yourself tearing up slightly. Someone hands you a tissue made of rough paper and you dab your eyes like you're in a black and white film. By sunset, the market begins to wind down. Stalls are packed, leftover skewers are burned for warmth, and the last bits of gossip are traded like precious coins. You help with cleanup, stacking baskets, sweeping straw, and returning wayward sandals to their owners. You find one pair that doesn't seem to belong to anyone. You keep them, just in case. That night, back at the farmhouse, the family is quiet but relaxed. The father counts out a few coins, his profit from selling extra vegetables. The mother is sewing a new patch into your robe. She doesn't say anything. You don't either. But something unspoken lingers in the air. Acceptance? Maybe. You sit on the porch as night falls, watching fireflies dance along the fence posts. You hold the mysterious rice cracker in your hand like a trophy. The distant rumble of drums fades. The quiet wraps around you like a blanket. You're filthy. You're sore. You've been tossed by a teenage wrestler. But today, you were part of something. Even if just for a moment. You wake up groggy, vaguely sticky from yesterday's festival revelry, and with the definite suspicion that you danced yourself into a leg cramp. But today, there's no music, no incense, no goldfish with judgmental eyes. Today, you're going to the mountains. Not for fun. It's charcoal day. This trip isn't for the weak-hearted, nor the weak-kneed, but you don't get much of a vote. The father is already tightening his sandals and handing you a walking stick. He grunts, "Bring water." That's your entire prep. You set out early, well before the sun has gotten its act together. The mountain looms to the north, blanketed in dense cedar and pine, with winding paths carved more by hooves and sandals than any formal roadwork. You pass other villagers heading the same way, each carrying woven baskets or dragging small carts. Everyone seems either silent or already tired. As the incline sharpens, your legs start a quiet protest. Then they get louder. Soon, you're sweating in places you didn't know had pores. Your task today is helping make charcoal, an essential fuel in feudal Japan, used for everything from heating homes to forging tools and weapons. Unlike the quick light and burn of firewood, charcoal requires time, heat, and patience. Lots of patience. It's not glamorous, and it smells like your laundry will never recover. The charcoal kilns are tucked in a clearing halfway up the mountain. They are dome-shaped earthen structures with chimney-like vents at the top and side openings you could almost crawl into if you had lost all dignity, and if you liked coughing up soot. The workers here look like chimney ghosts. Blackened faces, soot-stained hands, eyes blinking through plumes of smoke. They nod when you arrive, wordless and resigned. You're handed a shovel and pointed toward a stack of partially burned logs. No instructions. Just shovel and figure it out. You do, eventually. Charcoal making, it turns out, is mostly about waiting and watching. The kilns must burn slowly, with airflow carefully regulated. Too fast and the wood turns to ash. Too slow and it never becomes charcoal at all. It's a delicate dance of fire and patience. You ask to help with poking the vents, which sounds kind of fun until you realize you're lying belly down next to a smoking mound, jabbing at a hole with a stick while coughing and blinking like someone lost in a fog machine. Your nose is running. Your eyes are streaming. Your soul is slightly scorched. Historians still argue whether these mountain kilns were village-managed efforts or controlled by traveling specialists. What's not debated is how awful the conditions were. The smoke clings to everything. Your teeth taste like campfire. Your kimono has officially become charcoal-colored. During a break, you sip water and eat a rice ball that now somehow tastes like smoke, too. A younger worker offers you a piece of pickled daikon, stored in a waxed pouch. It's sour and crunchy and inexplicably comforting. You swap it for your last rice cracker. A fair trade. Someone brings up a local superstition, that the mountain is watched over by a fox spirit who punishes those who steal wood or speak ill of the forest. You immediately stop complaining. The forest seems to listen. Midday sun barely filters through the trees. Light pools in patches, turning the smoke into golden beams. A stag appears at the tree line, gazing at the kill operation like a judgmental foreman. Then it trots off, unimpressed. Later, you ask to help stack fresh logs inside a kill about to be sealed. It's hot inside. Dangerously so. You work fast. The logs are placed carefully, like a wooden puzzle, then the entrance is bricked shut with clay and mud. The firemaster, yes, that's his actual role, squats near the top vent and listens. Just listens. He claims he can hear whether the fire is burning clean. You nod in admiration, but mostly you're just too tired to argue. Someone starts a chant, low, rhythmic, designed to keep people awake and working. It's half song, half mantra. You join in on the chorus, mostly humming because the lyrics are old and slurred. But your voice blends in, and that's enough. By late afternoon, your arms are jelly and your lungs feel pre-charcoaled. The kilns are sealed and left to burn slowly over several days. You help clean tools, douse yourself in water from a cold stream, and sit on a rock, staring into the trees. There's a quiet reverence here. These villagers know every crack in the bark, every bend in the trail. They know which trees grow fastest and which make the best charcoal. You're starting to understand why spiritual stories cling to these mountains. You feel watched, but not in a spooky way. More like the forest is curious whether you'll make it back. You head down at dusk, the path slick with moss. A man ahead of you slips but catches himself with practiced ease. You do not. You skid 5 feet, arms flailing like you're trying to fly. Somehow, you don't break anything. Except your pride, which was already on life support. The village appears again, nestled in a blanket of twilight. Chimneys smoke gently, like sighs after a long day. You're blackened, bruised, but weirdly proud. The daughter laughs when she sees your face. You look like a haunted radish, she says. The mother washes your hands roughly but gives you extra rice. The father grunts approvingly. You've survived the mountain trial. As you lie down that night, your nose still catches whiffs of smoke. Not unpleasant, just ever-present. Like the mountains left their mark on you. And maybe they did. You don't wake up so much as you creak into consciousness. Every joint makes a quiet complaint, like a door hinge in an old temple. Your shoulders ache from yesterday's hauling, and you're pretty sure your toes are still full of gravel. But there's no time to wallow. Today's journey isn't uphill, thank the spirits, but it is long. And dusty. And political. You're heading to the local castle town. The village elder has requested that someone accompany him to deliver tribute to the daimyo. You're volunteered in that subtle, inescapable way where someone hands you a bundle of dried mushrooms and says, "You're strong." That's the entire discussion. You blink, and suddenly you're part of a feudal envoy. You and the elder set off just after sunrise, walking a narrow path that eventually widens into a well-trodden road. Others join along the way, peasants bearing rice, cloth, sometimes even handmade sandals. You learn quickly that this isn't just a delivery. It's a performance. The daimyo, the regional lord, isn't someone you just drop mushrooms off with. His court expects proper bows, the right phrases, and, above all, a posture of absolute humility. And clean clothes. You wore your nicest dusty robe. As the road snakes toward the castle, the scenery shifts. Rice fields give way to stone walls. Small homes turn to merchant shops. The smell of livestock is replaced by the smell of grilled eel and ink. The castle looms ahead, a massive structure layered with white plaster walls and tiled roofs that seem to float above stone bases. Castles in feudal Japan weren't just for defense, they were statements of power. Historians still argue whether certain architectural elements were more symbolic than practical, but there's no mistaking the effect. This place is meant to awe you. Mission accomplished. The closer you get, the more rules tighten. Guards inspect everything: baskets, bundles, even your belt. One of them taps your calf with the blunt end of a spear and says something about posture. You straighten immediately. Your back protests. Inside the outer walls, a series of courtyards and corridors funnel you forward. Samurai linger at corners, not quite glaring but definitely measuring. Their armor gleams. Their hands never stray far from their hilts. The elder whispers, "Don't speak unless spoken to. Don't look directly at anyone important. And don't step on the tatami with wet feet." Noted. You enter a large audience room. It's sparsely decorated, elegance by subtraction. A scroll hangs in the alcove, ink-brushed kanji reading something like harmony through obedience, though you suspect the subtext is "stay in your lane." The daimyo sits on an elevated platform, dressed in richly dyed silk robes. He's younger than expected, with sharp eyes and a face that could either bless you or end your whole week. The elder bows. You follow, trying not to faceplant. Gifts are presented one by one: rice, silk, mushrooms, dried fish. You present your mushrooms like they are gold nuggets. The daimyo nods slightly. He says nothing. Then he gestures. A servant brings forward a lacquered box. Inside, coins. Payment? Reward? A bribe? You don't ask. You just bow again, deeper this time. So deep your forehead practically grazes the mat. The meeting ends. Back outside, you exhale so hard your sandals squeak. You made it. You didn't cough, sneeze, or make direct eye contact. You're a diplomacy prodigy. You're offered tea in a side courtyard. This isn't the fancy tea ceremony you've heard about, that's a whole other ritual, but it's still a moment of quiet. You sip matcha from a rough clay cup. It's earthy and slightly bitter, like pond water made by a genius. A court lady walks by and murmurs something to a guard. He chuckles. You're 80% sure it was about your posture. The elder has business in the town, so you're free to explore until sundown. You wander through side streets lined with shops. Silk merchants drape their fabrics like waterfalls. A calligrapher dips a brush and scrawls your name, or at least tries to. He ends up writing something that translates to awkward traveler. You pass an apothecary filled with jars labeled things like fox liver and wind-resisting herb. The owner offers you a sample of a bitter root guaranteed to purge foolishness. Tempting, but no. You end up near the dojo district. From behind a bamboo fence, you hear the crack of bamboo swords, shinai, colliding. Inside, students in padded armor spar in a flurry of yells and footwork. The sensei calls out instructions that sound equal parts poetic and terrifying. One student notices you watching and smirks. "Wanna try?" You shake your head so fast your neck clicks. That's a no from your ligaments. Before long, the sun begins its slow descent. The town glows orange and gold. People begin closing shop doors. Paper lanterns flicker to life. You find a rice dumpling stand and eat quietly on a bench, watching as a mother scolds her child for chasing a rooster across the street. The rooster wins. On the way back to the village, the elder walks in silence. The path winds through the dusk. Fireflies return. You feel the weight of the day not just in your body but in your brain, like you've stepped into a different tier of existence and barely kept your balance. The daimyo will likely forget your face by tomorrow, but you won't forget his. Oiri roused early once again, the smell of miso soup mixing with the ever-present scent of wood smoke. Today's lesson, farming. Not the romanticized kind with gentle planting and singing birds, but the relentless, back-breaking grind of rice cultivation in feudal Japan. The village fields stretch out like a giant, watery mirror, reflecting the dawn sky. You slip off your sandals and squish into the muddy paddies, immediately regretting your choice of footwear. The mud sucks at your feet like a clingy octopus. You try to remember the elder's instructions. Planting rice is all about timing and precision. You grasp a handful of seedlings, tiny green shoots barely taller than your thumb, and bend over to plant them, one by one, in neat rows. It's tedious, slow, and downright exhausting. The sun climbs, and your back stiffens in protest. The daughter joins you, laughing as you wobble trying to balance in the slippery mud. "You're going to be the village's worst farmer," she teases. You suspect she's right. Around you, other villagers are at work. Some sing soft melodies to keep rhythm, others chat in low tones. Despite the hardship, there's a rhythm to it, almost meditative. But don't get too cozy. Muddy water is a breeding ground for mosquitoes that seem to regard you as an all-you-can-eat buffet. You slap at them while trying to keep your balance and plant your seedlings in one smooth motion. Spoiler, the balance part wins. The rice fields, or tanbua, are engineering marvels. They rely on an intricate irrigation system fed by mountain streams, carefully maintained through communal effort. Historians still argue whether these agricultural techniques evolved locally or were introduced from continental Asia, but everyone agrees they were revolutionary for Japan's food security. By midday, you're filthy, sunburned in places that didn't even realize they could burn, and covered in mud so thick it's almost a second skin. The mother calls you over for a break, offering you warm rice balls wrapped in leaves. You bite in, sticky and sweet with a hint of pickled plum. Perfect fuel. The father shows you how to check the soil's moisture by feel, clenching a handful and seeing if it crumbles. You fail spectacularly, ending up with a clump of mud stuck to your palm. He shakes his head but smiles. You learn. While you rest, the daughter drags you to a small shed where villagers store farming tools. Inside are sickles, hoes, and even a few wooden rakes. You notice a peculiar tool with a long handle and teeth like a comb. The daughter says it's for threshing, separating rice grains from the stalks after harvest. You ask if you'll get to use it. She laughs. Not today, farmer. There's talk among the villagers about a looming tax increase this year. Rice is currency, after all, and taxes often come in grain. The elder mutters about samurai lords squeezing the peasants harder. Historians still argue whether these tax policies actually worsened famine or encouraged agricultural innovation. Either way, the tension is real. After the break, you return to the paddies, sweat dripping down your back and mixing with mud. You try to forget the ache and focus on the task. You plant your last seedling with the exaggerated care of a surgeon. As the sun dips lower, the fields begin to glimmer, reflecting the soft pink sky. The daughter leans against your muddy shoulder, tired but proud. You realize this rhythm of planting, waiting, and harvesting isn't just work, it's life. And it's brutally honest. By nightfall, you return to the farmhouse, mud-caked and bone-weary. The family welcomes you with a steaming bowl of miso soup and a simple meal of grilled fish and pickled vegetables. You eat slowly, savoring the flavors that seem richer after a day's hard labor. The daughter hums a tune as she cleans her fishing rod, and the mother folds your kimono with gentle care. The father gives a rare nod of approval. As you lie down, the ache in your body feels like proof you've lived a day here, tried and tested by rice and mud. Tomorrow promises new trials. But for now, you close your eyes to the steady chorus of crickets and the distant call of a night bird. You did not drown in the rice fields. Not yet. You wake to a sky bruised purple and gold, the faint smell of dew and earth inviting you outside. Today, the village plans a festival, but before the festivities can start, you're drafted into a role far less fun: village sanitation and waste management. Yes, you heard right. In feudal Japan, managing human waste wasn't just a nuisance, it was a vital part of village life, linked directly to survival. The entire community depended on keeping their living spaces clean, and recycling waste into fertilizer was an art form nobody bragged about but everyone respected. You follow a small group of villagers carrying buckets to the communal latrine, which is more pit than toilet, but it gets the job done. The smell hits you like a wet blanket, and you wonder why your ancestors didn't invent nose plugs earlier. Still, there's an odd rhythm to the work: empty, clean, refill, repeat. You help carry the full buckets out to the fields, where the contents will be composted and mixed with straw to create rich fertilizer, called night soil. It's grim, but the alternative, poor crops and famine, is far worse. The mother jokes that you're rich in experience now, which makes you laugh even as you gag. Historians still argue whether night soil contributed to the occasional outbreaks of disease in villages or if its benefits for crops outweighed the risks. Villagers seem to trust the method, passing down recipes and composting rituals like secret family heirlooms. Later, you're shown how leftover food scraps are fed to village pigs. These creatures roam semi-freely, snuffling through garbage heaps with a hopeful snort. You watch a pig root around enthusiastically for discarded rice and vegetable peelings, amused by its single-minded enthusiasm. The daughter tells you the pigs are considered both pests and precious assets, a necessary contradiction in rural life. After the sanitation chores, you help tidy the village shrine, sweeping fallen leaves and arranging small offerings of rice and sake. The shrine is modest, made of weathered wood with faded red paint, but the villagers treat it with deep reverence. The festival begins as the sun climbs higher, with drumming and chanting echoing through the village. You watch villagers don colorful robes, and the children parade with miniature mikoshi, portable shrines, bouncing on their shoulders. The energy is infectious, and for a moment, the hardships you've endured fade into the background. You're handed a small drum and encouraged to join in the rhythm. Your beats are sloppy but earnest. The daughter smiles warmly, and even the elder gives you a nod of approval. As evening approaches, you sit near the bonfire with the family. Stories flow, some serious, others wild and exaggerated, about fox spirits, brave samurai, and foolish travelers who underestimated the mountains. You listen, wrapped in the warmth of firelight and camaraderie. Historians still debate how much of these festivals were originally spiritual versus community-building events, But tonight, it's clear, they're about connection, endurance, and hope. You close your eyes, ears full of drumbeats and laughter, thinking maybe, just maybe, you could survive here a little longer. But don't get too confident. Tomorrow brings something altogether different. You wake slowly, the dawn light diffusing through the shoji screens like pale silk, softening the edges of your tired body. Today, the village has summoned you for a trial in an unexpected arena, sword etiquette. Yes, the sharp end of feudal Japan's rigid social order. You've spent days crawling through muddy paddies, dodging mosquitoes, and learning about waste management, but now you're supposed to handle a katana, a symbol of power, discipline, and death wrapped in elegance. And spoiler alert, you're nowhere near ready. The samurai instructor awaits you in the dojo, a low, wooden structure where sunlight filters through slatted windows, dust motes dancing lazily in the air. His armor is stored carefully in the corner, and his gaze pierces through you as if reading the unspoken thought, "Why am I here again?" He hands you a wooden practice sword, a bokken. You're grateful for the bluntness, though the weight feels awkward and foreign. The first lesson isn't about cutting or swinging, it's about posture. You're instructed to stand like a mountain, steady, unyielding, rooted. You wobble immediately, feeling as if your legs are made of jelly rather than bone and muscle. Balance, the instructor says with a knowing smile. You can't fight if you fall over. You spend the next hour trying not to trip over your own feet while mimicking the slow, deliberate movements he demonstrates. The dojo echoes with the sharp kiari shouts, warrior spirit manifesting through sound. You try one and almost scare a chicken outside. It's less a warrior shout and more a startled squeak, but hey, you're trying. Historians still argue whether the samurai code of conduct, the Bushido, was a strict rulebook or a more fluid, evolving ideal. What's clear is that etiquette mattered as much as skill. Knowing when to draw your sword was as important as how you wielded it. The instructor drills you on the proper way to sheathe and unsheath the sword, emphasizing grace and precision. You fumble so much the instructor's lips twitch in amusement, but he doesn't laugh aloud, too dignified for that. After the basic stances, the lesson progresses to sparring drills with another student, a wiry young samurai who looks amused by your clumsy attempts. His bokken taps yours sharply, forcing you to retreat. You try to remember that you're not here to win but to learn. The sweat pours down your forehead, mixing with the wooden floor's dust. Your arms tremble with effort. The warrior spirit feels elusive. Between drills, the instructor shares stories of famous samurai who embodied honor and bravery. You listen, fascinated by tales that blend history and legend, of duels fought for loyalty, revenge, or sheer pride. One story involves a samurai who, despite being outnumbered, held his ground for hours, his calm in battle becoming legendary. You try to channel even a sliver of that calm, but mostly you channel awkwardness. Then comes the moment everyone's been waiting for, etiquette around the sword. You learn that the katana isn't just a weapon, it's a symbol so sacred that it must never touch the ground. You're reprimanded gently when your sword accidentally brushes the tatami. Respect, the instructor says. Even the blade deserves respect. You think about that for a moment. A sword demanding respect? It's almost poetic, or maybe just the polite way to say, don't be careless or you might lose a finger. Later, you're shown how to polish and care for the sword. The process is meticulous, using charcoal powder and soft cloths to bring out a mirror shine. The sword's edge gleams under your touch, cold and quiet like a sleeping dragon. Handling it, you realize, is almost like communicating with a living thing, an extension of your body and will. You're reminded that the sword is as much about the mind as the muscle. The sharp edge is tempered by restraint, and the fiercest samurai is the one who knows when not to draw. As the lesson winds down, you're exhausted, physically and mentally. The dojo feels like a sacred temple, a place where discipline and spirit meet. You're grateful to the instructor's patience. He could have thrown you out for your many mistakes, but instead, he nods with quiet approval. You step outside, the afternoon sun warming your skin as you catch your breath. The village seems quieter now, the soft murmur of daily life a stark contrast to the intensity inside the dojo. You try to imagine yourself as a samurai, standing tall and unshakable in battle, wielding your sword with purpose and grace. It feels like a dream far removed from the mudded boots and sweaty backs of the rice fields. That night, as you lie under the stars, the weight of the sword lesson settles deep in your muscles and bones. You think about the sword, not just a weapon, but a way of life you barely understand. The balance between power and humility, strength and respect. Tomorrow will demand more of you. The sword isn't just for show, it's survival. And you're still learning how to hold it. The dawn breaks with a heavy mist curling through the narrow paths between thatched roofs. Today, your lesson shifts to the art and danger of travel during feudal Japan's rigidly controlled era. You might have imagined the samurai roaming freely like wandering knights, but in reality, traveling anywhere outside your village meant navigating a maze of checkpoints, permits, and sometimes deadly consequences. You step out with a local messenger, a wiry man named Takashi who knows the winding roads better than the back of his weathered hand. His straw hat shades sharp eyes that miss nothing. The air is crisp, smelling faintly of pine and wood smoke, but your nerves are on edge. Not because of the terrain, but because every step you take could be questioned by patrolling samurai or magistrates. As you walk, Takashi explains that the Tokugawa shogunate imposed strict travel restrictions to maintain order and control. Peasants and commoners were generally forbidden from leaving their villages without official permission. The roads themselves were guarded by armed officials checking passes, often in grueling weather and less than pleasant conditions. The messenger tells you about the dreaded seikisho, the checkpoints. Passing through one without proper documents was a risk many took, but few escaped unscathed. You listen, imagining a medieval TSA with swords, only far less polite. You trudge past rice paddies still shimmering with morning dew, the landscape occasionally punctuated by small inns known as hatago. These inns catered to official travelers and merchants but were far from comfortable by modern standards. You're told they were often overcrowded, noisy, and riddled with bugs, but provided basic shelter from rain and wild animals. Takashi stops to tie a bundle of messages onto his back, explaining that communication between villages and daimyo, feudal lords, was vital but slow. Letters often took days or weeks to arrive, depending on weather and the ever-present threat of bandits. Speaking of bandits, your guide shares a quirky detail. Some travelers carried small whistles made from animal bones, intended to scare off attackers or summon help. You fish in your pocket, realizing you've been walking without any defense besides sheer dumb luck. Historians still debate how common bandit attacks truly were versus how much they were exaggerated to justify harsh policing and restrictions. Either way, the tension is real enough to keep travelers on high alert. Along the road, you pass other figures, a lone monk shuffling quietly, a merchant carrying heavy packs, and a group of farmers returning from the fields. Everyone's pace is purposeful, eyes flicking warily toward the trees. You ask Takashi if there are any shortcuts or secret paths for those brave or foolish enough to evade the checkpoints. He smiles slyly but remains silent. You get the message, some things are better left unspoken. After hours of walking, your legs ache and the sun climbs higher. Takashi points out a humble tea house where you can rest. The interior smells of brewed green tea and dried persimmon. You sip slowly, savoring the bitter warmth and the brief respite. As you sit, the other travelers share tales of their journeys, some hopeful, some desperate. One merchant complains about increased taxes strangling his profits, another laments the loss of his son to the draft for a distant war. You realize that travel isn't just about moving from place to place. It's a thread weaving together stories, news, and survival. Before leaving, Takashi warns that the return trip will be no less perilous, especially as night approaches. The roads will empty, shadows deepen, and the risk of encountering less savory characters rises. You wonder, not for the first time, if you'd last 24 hours in this world without a samurai at your side. As the mist thickens, you tighten your cloak and prepare to face the winding roads again, each step a dance between freedom and danger, control and chaos. The journey continues. The sun is low and warm, casting long shadows as you find yourself drawn into a world that's both mesmerizing and unnerving, the market district of a bustling castle town. You've heard about these towns from afar, places where peasants, merchants, samurai, and artisans collide in a controlled chaos unlike anywhere else in feudal Japan. Today, you'll walk through the streets and try to make sense of the frenzy. The market buzzes with a mix of scents: fresh fish drying on racks, pungent miso bubbling in clay pots, the sweet aroma of grilled mochi, and the sharp tang of lacquer and pine from the craftsmen's stalls. Vendors shout their wares, voices rising and falling in a rhythmic melody that feels almost musical once you get used to the noise. You weave through the crowd, feeling the brush of kimono sleeves and the shuffle of wooden sandals on dirt paths. The sharp clang of a blacksmith's hammer rings nearby, each strike sending sparks into the fading daylight. You marvel at the precision and power it takes to forge a sword. No wonder the katana commands such respect. A merchant approaches with a tray of senbei, crispy rice crackers, offering a sample. You take one, surprised at the delicate balance of sweet, salty, and toasted flavors. The merchant explains that snacks like these often traveled long distances, traded between villages and provinces, feeding the constant flow of commerce. Historians still argue whether these market towns were primarily economic hubs or social melting pots where new ideas and cultures spread most rapidly. What's undeniable is their role as nerve centers of feudal society, places where the rigid class distinctions often blurred under the pressure of daily survival. You overhear a conversation between two farmers discussing the recent tax hikes imposed by their local daimyo. Their worry is palpable. One talks about possibly selling his only cow to pay the dues. It's a stark reminder that beneath the vibrancy lies a fragile balance, easily tipped by famine, war, or political intrigue. You spot a street performer juggling knives with practiced ease, a crowd gathered to watch. His act is mesmerizing yet dangerous. One wrong move and he'd lose more than pride. You can't help but compare his skill to the samurai's precise swordsmanship from the dojo, both requiring endless practice, sharp reflexes, and nerves of steel. In a quieter corner, an elderly woman sells herbal remedies. She shows you a small bundle of dried chrysanthemum flowers, prized for their calming effects. She claims it helps samurai calm their minds before battle, a charming tidbit you tuck away for later. You sip a brewed cup she offers and feel a soothing warmth spread through you, the perfect counterbalance to the market's frenetic energy. As night falls, paper lanterns flicker on, bathing the streets in a soft orange glow. The market slows but doesn't stop. Night markets come alive, selling everything from fresh fish to handcrafted trinkets. The mix of laughter, haggling voices, and distant shamisen music creates a lullaby of life and resilience. You realize that surviving here isn't just about physical strength or wielding a sword, it's about knowing the rhythms of the city, reading its signals, and finding your place amid its vibrant chaos. Tomorrow, you'll face the ultimate test, a samurai's daily reality, where honor, danger, and survival collide at every turn. But for now, you savor the market's heartbeat and the promise it holds. The morning sun peeks over the tiled rooftops, casting a gentle golden glow on the quiet streets. Today, you step into the final challenge, experiencing the daily routine of a samurai, the warrior elite whose lives balanced on the knife edge of honor, duty, and survival. You're about to discover why, despite all their skill and power, historians still argue whether the samurai were truly noble heroes or simply enforcers of a harsh, rigid system. You begin with the ritual of seppuku, but don't worry, not the dramatic part. Rather, the rigorous discipline and precise routines that shape a samurai's day from dawn till dusk. Your guide, a seasoned samurai named Hiroshi, leads you through the morning's physical exercises, grueling stretches, kata, formalized movements, and weapon drills. The air is thick with the scent of pine and sweat, the rhythmic sounds of wooden swords striking echoing against the garden's stone walls. You try to match his fluid movements but mostly end up looking like a flailing octopus. Hiroshi chuckles softly but reminds you that even the most legendary samurai started somewhere, often fumbling through their first lessons. Between drills, he shares stories of samurai loyalty and sacrifice, weaving in tales of the Sengo period's endless wars and shifting allegiances. These stories feel like living history, one moment glorified, the next brutally honest. You think about the contradictions of their code, absolute loyalty to one's lord, yet personal honor that could demand defiance. After physical training, it's time for mental discipline. You sit cross-legged in the garden, focusing on zazen, seated meditation. At first, your mind bounces between thoughts, past failures, hunger, the ache in your legs, but slowly, the rhythm of your breath pulls you into calm. The garden's gentle rustling leaves and distant bird calls become a soothing backdrop. Meditation, Hiroshi explains, was as essential as swordsmanship. It steadied the mind for the chaos of battle and the complexities of court life. Historians still debate how much Bushido was a lived reality versus an idealized code crafted later by poets and scholars. But the daily practices you observe certainly reflect a relentless pursuit of perfection. Next, you're introduced to the samurai's armor, layers of lacquered plates, silk cords, and intimidating masks designed both to protect and to strike fear. Hiroshi helps you don the heavy gear, each piece clinking softly, shifting your balance and weight. You're suddenly acutely aware of how tiring battle must have been, even before swords clashed. A quick walk around the training grounds clad in armor feels like wearing a suit of responsibility. You imagine the tension in a real skirmish, the adrenaline pumping as you strive to keep your footing and honor intact. As the day wanes, you join Hiroshi at a low wooden table, sharing a simple meal of rice, pickled vegetables, and grilled fish. The quiet camaraderie is a sharp contrast to the earlier intensity. Over the meal, Hiroshi speaks of the delicate balance samurai maintained between their roles as warriors, bureaucrats, and sometimes poets. Before you part, he hands you a small wooden token engraved with a cherry blossom, a symbol of fleeting beauty and the impermanence of life, cherished by the samurai. You feel a strange mixture of exhaustion and reverence. The life of a samurai is not just about battles or swords, it's a relentless discipline of body, mind, and spirit. As twilight descends, you reflect on your journey. From muddy fields to crowded markets, from strict social codes to secret paths, the world of feudal Japan reveals itself not as a romantic samurai fantasy but as a complex, demanding, and often unforgiving place. You probably wouldn't last 24 hours here, not without some serious training, quick wits, and maybe a bit of luck. But you've glimpsed what it takes to survive, and maybe even thrive, in a world where honor cuts deeper than any blade. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The day settles gently into evening, and you find yourself sinking deeper into the quiet comfort of your room. The sharp edges of the past soften, like a distant melody fading into the night. The sounds of bustling markets, the weight of armor, the crisp discipline of the dojo, all begin to blur into the gentle hum of the present moment. You breathe slowly, feeling your body relax as the stories drift away, leaving behind only a faint echo of ancient footsteps and whispered secrets. The world of feudal Japan, with all its challenges and codes, seems less distant now, part of the vast tapestry of human experience. There's a strange peace in knowing that despite the hardships, people lived, loved, and dreamed just as we do. The samurai's sword, the farmer's toil, the merchant's bargaining, all threads woven into the fabric of a life both harsh and beautiful. So, as you close your eyes, let the quiet wash over you like a gentle rain. Let the images soften into shadows, the sounds fade into silence. Know that you've traveled far tonight, across time and culture, and that rest awaits with open arms. Tomorrow is another day, another story. For now, just breathe and sleep well.